Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind Podcast, episode 133. Today, why you will be developing for replacement value. This is a fabulously interesting episode. Bob and I have discussed this a few times this week, and I thought, what a great topic for a podcast. So let's jump on into episode 133. And welcome to 2024 again. I know we've already had a couple of welcomes, but I can't help myself. I love New Year's because it's new beginnings, new start, goals, all the stuff that makes my wheels spin. But before we kick into what I care about, well, I suppose you are part of what I care about. Welcome, Bob. Thanks for coming.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
I was wondering.
Oh, don't be silly. All right. As per usual, Bob and I have got a great topic today, and he's got some valuable insights. We've been discussing it for a few days, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. It's come up in a conversation the other day with one of our new mentoring students as well.
Yeah, well, that's how it started. We were doing the induction, and that's where we all sit and sort of map out and have a chat to the mentoring student, all of us, and create his plan. And you said something about replacement value, and I thought, I've never heard you talk about that before, so I wrote it down, and then afterwards we started chatting. We've talked about it again last night, we've talked about it this morning. Here I am getting ready to come over to the office, and I'm sort of unpacking it a bit more because I find it quite interesting, and I think you will too. But before we kick into episode 133, Bob,
Yep.
what is your tip for this week?
Well, being that time of year,
yes,
what I'm saying is this. I'm not talking about New Year's resolutions. I'm talking about planning 2024. And I've let a couple of weeks go because I think the first couple of weeks of a new year, you're just doing stuff, family's still hanging around, maybe you got kids and that. But what I'm saying now, about this time, what I like to do around, the later part of January, once things are settled down a bit, is really plan my year out and plan out 2024. I've got some good ideas. I've broached a couple with you, but I really want to give it a bit of thought. You've got to be selfish, I think. What I'm talking about is me 2024. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't involve other people. Of course it will.
I'm probably in there somewhere, Bob.
You're in the mix.
Yeah.
You're definitely in the mix. But what do you want to see at the end of 24 when you look back and you think, what a great year it was? Well, it's up to us if it was a great year or not. Point is, it's not over. It's only beginning. And so be a little bit selfish. Put some time aside and really think about what you want out of 2024 and then reverse engineer it as to how you're going to do it.
Perfect. And while we're on that, I do offer a free goal setting session for anybody in the entire world, you, your friends, your neighbours, whoever. There will be a link at the bottom of this, and it's January 24th, which is next Wednesday. So before the next podcast comes out. So you need to click the link, register. You'll get the Zoom link. There's no upsell, no anything. All it is an hour of your time to design the life you're after. Have a think about what you want and map it out. And I just lead you through. That's all I do. Bob and I actually went to the beach on Sunday and I started mine, just my overview, and then I'll start unpacking that soon. But I get really excited about goals and about planning our future. Like we have to design our life. Otherwise, we are just the
You can't just
passenger.
let it happen.
Yes, we've got to take
just
control.
Watching from the sideline.
And interestingly, I go to Toastmasters and we had our first meeting back last night. We talked about, do people believe in New Year's resolutions? And there was a lot of poo-hooing. And even though it's that goal setting for January, at least there is some intention that you want to do something. And maybe you haven't succeeded in the past, but crikey, at least you've stepped into it. So let this year perhaps be the year you do the things you want. And I've got, as usual, some big ones on my list. And oh my gosh. But anyway, excited. So if you're keen to jump onto my free session, it's next Wednesday. There'll be a link below. It'll be in the evening. All the details will come to you. Sign up. And yeah, just give yourself that 1 hour to think about you. Anyway, now let's jump into the podcast, Bob.
Yeah, so
I'm starting with the questions because you've got the answers. You're the answer man on this one. So, Bob, developing for replacement value. What does that mean? What is it?
Well, the subject came up. I talked about replacement value.
Yes.
You often hear that term in regards to insurance.
Yes, that's when I thought of it, yeah.
Yeah. So you might insure your house or something for replacement value. Sometimes you insure something for a particular dollar value, and that's all you get if it gets written off. But if it's replacement value, then it's whatever it costs at the time. So it does have relevance to property development.
Yeah.
In that the cost of producing product, and what I mean by product, it could be land, it could be townhouses, houses, apartments. It doesn't. Let's just call that product. The cost of producing it typically goes up over time.
Mm.
There can be little corrections both ways, but typically it goes up over time. But what it relates to is a property development isn't something you do in 1 minute. So your property development might take 2 years to do.
It's a lot of minutes.
Well, let's say you're doing a project. Look, I don't know. It could be an upmarket duplex in a council where they're slow to give development approvals. Might take 2 years.
Sounds awfully like Victoria to me.
It could be some townhouses. Doesn't really matter. But let's say it's a 2-year project. And what I mean by a 2-year project is from the time you find your site till the time you sell your product is 2 years. Let's just say that's 2 years. So you think about it. So you're buying on the site on today's market. So you're paying market value today for the site.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be great to get it below market value, but let's just say you're paying market value. And let's just say it's 9 or 10 months. What I'll do, I'll keep it easy. Let's say it was, let's say it's 10 months.
I've got a pen and paper here if you need to start writing some stuff down.
I'll do it from memory. So let's say it's 10 months before you can start to build. Well, what would that mean? Well, first of all, you've got to settle your site. That might take 30, 60 days. Then you've got to get your development permit. You've got to get your building permit. You've got to line your builder up, get a building contract, sort out your construction finance, and now you're ready to build. Let's say that took 10 months. And let's say it took another 10 months to build it, or 12 months, and then a couple of months to sell it. So let's say that added up to 2 years, whatever it is. So you're buying the site at today's value. The building cost will be whatever buildings cost in 10 months' time. Remember, you're not going to build for 10 months. And so whatever the going rate is for building your product in 10 months' time, that's what it is. But you're not selling till month 22 or 23 or 24.
A couple of years later, basically.
Yeah, a couple of years later. So you're selling price. This is January 24. Let's do the 2-year thing.
Yep.
January 24, you're paying market value for your site. About, let's say, around December or something like that, you're paying the construction price at that time.
Yep.
And in December or January 26, you're selling it at whatever the property is worth then.
Yes. So
you've got these varying prices. And the thing is, when we're looking at a site now, we're
looking at now prices.
Yeah. And when we do a feasibility, we typically use today prices.
Yeah.
So we say, okay, we're buying it today. That's what it's worth. These things cost X dollars to build today, and that's what goes into our feaso. And today we could sell them for Y dollars, and that goes into our feasibility. And we have a look at it, and we have a look at the margin. And the reason we do it that way...
I was going to say, and there is a reason for that, yes.
Is that's what valuers do.
So you can't decide to put in later figures because the valuer won't accept that. So and the valuer impacts how much money you can borrow. So that's that reason.
So your financier obviously is leaning on a valuer to give them a couple of things. What they want to know is what will these, not so much what will they sell for, but what do they sell for? This duplex, these townhouses. What's it cost to build? And of course the land value. And then part of the requirements, I guess, of the value is they'll do a feasibility, but they'll do a feasibility on today's dollars. So they say, okay, the site's purchased for this, that's the site value. Today it costs this much to build, that's the build cost. And today we could sell them for this, and that's what they put in. And then obviously it has to be profitable, not just for you, it's got to be profitable for the financier.
Yes.
And that's important.
Yeah, and that's probably something that a lot of people forget. There is more than one person who has to make profit in this. The person selling the land, the developer, the financier, everyone wants to click the ticket. And they all have certain requirements to click that ticket, that margin that has to be
Yeah,
reached.
yeah, and sometimes you see a project. Let's say someone does a feasibility, the margins a bit low for getting finance,
Mm.
but they don't think like that. They think, I would have liked to have made 400, but hey, it makes 275. But hey,
I'm good with that.
that takes me years to make that in my job.
Yeah.
I'll just do it and make 275. But the problem is,
No one's going to loan you
the
the
bank
money.
might be looking for 400,
Yeah.
or the financier, and so it doesn't really matter what you want. It's what your financier is
There's
prepared
an
to take.
unless on that though, Bob. Unless you have enough money to fund it yourself,
Right?
then it's no
If you can
problem.
fund it yourself,
Yeah, it's no
yeah,
issue.
yeah. But even if you could fund a project 100% yourself, would you really want to do that? Because all you're making is your margin.
Yeah.
So
I think there would be people that would think that's okay.
yeah, but would you do two projects and still finance them really conservatively at
Mm.
50%?
Far better option.
Well, you certainly make more money doing that.
Yeah.
But anyway, look,
Anyway,
whatever.
we've gone off track.
We've
So
gone off track.
let's go back to
Most
our
of the time,
replacement
what we're
value.
trying to do is
Yeah.
get the most money we can out of the financier.
Yeah.
Because the more money they put in, the less money we have to put in.
Leveraging.
Yeah. So we've got our total development costs, everything it costs us to do the project, which is made up of two components: our equity and our loan.
Mm.
The bigger the loan, the less equity we put in, and most people go that way. And sometimes it's quite tight. Do you have enough equity? So you're really looking for lenders often who will lend as much as you can get your hands on. Even if it's a bit more expensive because they're lending more, it might actually work better for you.
So, Bob, the next, just carrying on with the replacement value, that's the whole,
Yeah.
the value side of it. So, just sort of who. Let's get to the end because
Yeah, the end.
people might be thinking, well, we always think like that. We know that in 2 years' time, it's going to be a bit higher. But so, what have you noticed now that why this sparked the conversation? What do you think's happening right now with the whole replacement value thing?
Yeah. So how this conversation came up the other day is we're just looking at the market at the moment.
Yeah.
And we're sort of looking, well, what's
January 24.
January 24, we're saying, and what's the 2024 market going to look like in our opinion? And what's the maybe 2025 market going to look like? Because if we're buying sites today, we'll be delivering them probably, depends on the back end of 25. Now, if it's a simple little 2-lot subdivision or a 2-lot splitter, obviously it's not a 24-month project.
No.
It's only it could only be months.
But let's be realistic. They're pretty hard to come by at the moment because of...
So anything that makes money in a 2-lot, in a little splitter is pretty hard to get.
Yep.
Normally you got to build on them to get some sort of a margin.
Not saying they don't, just saying they're harder to come by.
Yep.
I'm a bit of a realist.
So I've just gone for the average sort of duplex 3 or 4 townhouse sort of thing in the conversation. And so the point is this, and this conversation's got a little bit to do with feasibilities. It's got a little bit to do with finance.
Yeah.
And it's also got a bit to do with what the market might look like when you get there for your sales.
And also
2 years down the track.
What's kind of starting to happen that you can see with financiers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is always a topic of conversation.
Yeah.
But particularly because in the last couple of years, it's been quite different from usual. So, and I'm going back 2 or 2.5 years now, but we're still feeling the last of the effects of that. So we had rapid rises in values. Remember, coming out of the GFC, coming out of COVID. But then we had rapidly rising bill costs.
Yes.
And we had a correction in sale prices, and now that's in 2023 has all been made up again. So it sort of went up rapidly, had a bit of a correction, which it always does after something rises so rapidly. And we've had some slight increases in the last 12 months, and we're back like where we were, a little bit in front of where we were price-wise. But construction costs went up rapidly, and they've slowed down a lot, but there's still some slow increases in build costs. Nothing like we had, but it's going to still trickle up a bit, I believe, for a little while to come yet. And also we had interest rate rises last year. So that's the thing we didn't have during that rapid rise in values and build costs. But then last year, Reserve Bank using their sledgehammer to crack a peanut, with interest rates. We had rises,
'Yep.
13 or whatever rises we've had. So all of those things impact profitability. Profitability being the profit that developers can make. So, we've had increase in build costs, and we've had building taking longer, which stretches your interest out, and then we've had the interest rate rises. So we've had a few jabs and a bit of a right cross, but we did have those value increases, and so we're just sort of
But that's resulted in,
filtering out of all
yeah,
of that.
and that resulted in a lot of developments not being able to go ahead or slowing down
Good point.
developments because people couldn't make development stack up. And I'm not saying everybody, because we have. So there are developments stacking up. And thanks to the people who put comments underneath, yes, we are developing. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we actually are developing ourselves and have mentoring student developing, and people are making profits. So what we are saying is it definitely slowed
It's
down.
been tougher to make margin for a while now.
Definitely.
And it'll slowly get better, but it's still getting tougher. Not getting tougher. It's still a bit tough, but it will improve. However, so what does that mean? Well, it means that if you do, often when you do a feasibility now, and it has been this way for a while, it's been hard to get our old 20%. The old benchmark. I was told 20% when I started nearly 40 years, around 40 years
I
ago.
mean, you've said 20% forever.
It's a magic number. Got to get a 20% margin. For those that don't understand the 20%, it's your profit expressed as a percentage of your total costs. So your profit should be 20% of all your costs. That's an old number. It's not always that number. And who sets that? Well, pretty much the financiers, whatever that number is. The smaller and easier the project, the lower that number can be. And we've talked about this before.
Yeah, because we have talked about 15s for a while too now, especially
on duplexes.
Yeah.
It used to be, 18 to 20 on a 3 or 4 pack of townhouses, 15 on a duplex.
Yeah.
But, and you made a comment before, everybody needs to make a profit.
Yep.
There's no point doing something to not make a profit, like to break even or to make almost nothing out of it. There's no point doing that, even if you can. And so,
sorry.
It's an epiphany.
No, it's all right. I'll bring it in afterwards. Yeah. Go.
Don't forget it.
I won't.
Better write it down.
I'll write it down.
If you're like me, you suddenly think of something, and then like a minute later, it's out of your head. So what's that mean? Well, it means that when you get to sell your property in, let's say, 2 years' time, you can't sell it for what people are selling properties for now.
No, and that's always been the case, but it's a bit more apparent, isn't it? It's really
because we've had all these rapid rises, and it's been harder to get the margin. But back to people having to make money, what we've seen with financiers, and it's been this way for a while, I started seeing it a year ago, is financiers then came to the party and started funding projects at a lower margin. And they have to make money. How does keep it simple, how does a financier make money?
They loan money.
They lend it out.
Yep.
They lend it out at a higher interest rate than they pay to get the money.
So what we're saying is they too are a business. That's what we're saying. Yeah. So they need to loan money. So because people were finding it harder to make the margins, they've started sort of loosening up a bit, haven't they, Bob?
And they have for a while. This has been the case for a while.
Yep.
Less so the banks. We know the banks pulled back on their property development funding some time ago.
Yeah.
They're still lending, but nowhere near the amounts that they used to. But all the non-banks, private equity, moved into the gap and filled the gap.
Because they're a business.
Well, banks make a lot of money out of other things.
Yeah.
They're probably not even big. Well, I know they're not big lenders of property development. They'd rather lend on, commercial investments, resi investments, home loans, and fees. They make a lot of fees. Whereas the non-bank private equity sector, they really make their money by lending it out, and they pay for money. So they're paying investors an interest rate, and then they lend it out at a higher rate. It's pretty simple, and they often charge an upfront fee, of course. But if they're not lending, they're not making money. And if the market is tight and it's hard to get margins, then there's and if they insist on the old higher margins, they're not going to lend much. So what they've done, a lot of them have come to the party and they've said, look, we'll look at deals and lend at a lower margin. I'll give you an example. traditionally, like when we were doing duplexes, 15% margin was the going rate. And I've spoken to some financiers and they've been lending in the nines and tens.
No, nines. Holy heckers.
Why? Well, because they have to keep lending.
Mm,
And if they insist on 15s, they're not going to get a lot of deals.
mm. And they
But
won't.
if they lend on nines and tens, they'll get plenty, get a lot of deals. So they're not in the business of, of not lending money. They have to.
Mm.
And so if they lend, let's say they lend on a duplex that's showing 10%, whereas, a few years ago they wanted 15, they still make the same profit
Mm.
because they make their profit on the margin between what they pay for money and what they lend it out. And they have an application fee, let's say, keep it simple.
They love a good application
They're
fee,
still
don't
making
they?
that same profit, whether the deal's showing 10% or 15.
Yes.
The difference is that
A little bit more risk.
technically it's a higher level of risk
Yeah.
to take on a 10% project than a 15.
Okay, recently we had a mentoring student having to jump through extra hoops.
Mm.
And that's when they had to lean in and say, we've got you as our project advisor, because the financier wanted that little bit more security, knowing that they were new to development.
Mm.
I never put that two together.
Yeah, well,
I wrote down rules.
it's all
There's
part of
rules
their
around it.
risk analysis.
Right. Okay. Got you.
Yeah. And so that's been happening a bit.
Yep.
And so back to it, I mean, if the financier's willing to fund your project at 10%, then it's a deal as far as I'm concerned.
Mm.
The problem would have been if it only showed 10 and that particular financier's locked on 15, yet they're not going to lend you the money without you tipping in a lot more equity. And so we've seen that for a while now. And that's helped development. We've also seen a lot of people not go ahead with projects, not go buy a site, not get a DA. They're just sitting on it as an investment for a while because, particularly people that are not normally developers, that have just sort of slipped in from outside, it could be a doctor, a dentist, a school teacher, could be anybody who doesn't normally develop. They bought a site and I'm not going to do anything. I don't know what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, I spoke to somebody the other day and they bought it and then they kind of bottomed out and sold it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bob, what this has resulted in as well is the increase coming in a lack of housing, and we already have a lack of housing. And what that does, it drives house prices up.
It does.
And not just
it's
that.
like a series of seesaws.
It is. And it's not just the new product that's going to be driven up, because there won't be enough new product. The second-hand, the non-new product housing is going to increase in value. That's what we talked about this morning, wasn't it?
Look, there's a strong demand for housing. It's continuous. As you know, like one of the problems for real estate agents at the moment is getting listings.
Oh, we've got one around the corner. He's got nothing.
Yeah.
They just go to work and twiddle their thumbs.
Yeah, and a lot of real estate agents, this is not every area in every part of Australia, but it's a lot of it. Agents are dropping their commissions a bit to try and get listings.
Yeah.
So strong demand. We've got something like 300,000 overseas migrants moving in a year. And that's going to continue for a while because that's picking up the slack where nobody came over during COVID. It's just, making up time. Normal organic population growth and just the demand for housing is strong. So if supply dwindles a bit by, for instance, people not going ahead with DAs, sitting on the fence and not developing, then those that do develop, when they get in 2 years' time, just by this pure lack of, and we've seen the numbers, there's a diminished amount of DAs going through a lot of councils. There's a lot less building approvals we've seen going through, numbers off the HIA, less building approvals. That it's going to create a shortage of new stock.
Which drives the price up.
Well, there's always second-hand stock, but a lot of people want new stock for lots of reasons. Downsizes. I mean, a lot of upmarket duplexes nearly always are downsizes, and so what are they going to buy? And so you're getting to a point in 2 years' time where quite possibly not a lot of stock because of all those reasons. It's cost you more to get there because you bought the block on today's price, you're getting it built in 10 months' time price, but you're selling it in the 2 year price.
Do you know what? This reminds me of Liam, who did the upmarket duplex in
Oh
Victoria,
yeah.
and the same thing happened to him. A mentoring student, we should get him on here actually, and that went up by 200,000.
Mm.
I mean, that is,
By the time you got there,
yeah. By the time he got there,
yeah,
that wasn't his numbers.
no, no.
Yeah.
But we've seen corrections in the market as well.
Yes, for sure.
Previously where it can go a bit the other way. I'm not saying it doesn't.
No,
I'm just saying
but we're looking at this
property
now.
goes up more for more time than it goes down. Otherwise, property would never go up at all.
Yeah.
So there are always corrections, but corrections come generally after quite a kick up, quite a boom. But what I'm saying is this: in 2 years' time, when you finished your project and people are looking at buying new product, they'll have to pay your price, and your price is what it costs you plus a profit margin.
Mm.
Because if they don't, and that's what I mean by replacement value.
Mm.
In 2 years' time, the replacement value of your duplex unit would be expected to be higher than what it costs to produce today.
Mm.
Land values would have gone up a bit. Build costs would have gone up a bit.
And it's always been the case, but I think what you're pointing out today and how this came up is because it's going to be uh, a a bit more noticeable, and financiers are going to change the way they look at it because they're going to,
Well,
they've started
a
to.
lot of them have.
Yeah. So it's probably a little bit, what would you say, it's a bit more
Well, we go
exaggerated.
through this transition, we've still got a bit of the after effects of everything that happened post-COVID.
Yep.
Those things that happen, there's a lot of settling down. As I said before, with pricing, it went up rapidly, had a bit of a correction, been trickling up.
Yep.
But there's good reasons why it will continue to escalate more. Bill prices went up a lot, slowing down a lot. Interest rates did go up.
Mm.
They're stuck there for a little while now, where they are, and everything that's affected it has been filtering out for a while, and will continue to filter out during 2024. But by the time people buy your product in 2 years' time, it's a totally different market from now.
And more so than normal.
Yeah, and that will be replacement value at the time. Replacement value will always be what it costs plus the developer's margin.
Plus everyone's margin, the developer, the financier.
Well, everyone makes profit
Yeah.
through
I mean,
the way
we've
through.
got to remember life is about business, and everyone's got to pay their bills. The developer needs to eat, the financier needs to eat. Everyone's got to eat.
And developers' cost includes all those people having a feed.
Yes.
8 different consultants, all of them having a feed, you having a feed, everyone having a feed.
While we're on that, still dealing with the Christmas overeating situation.
No, I'm trying to eat maximum 2 meals a day at the moment. See how I go. And so that replacement value in 2 years' time will not be what it costs to do something now. And if people want new product, they're going to have to pay that. If they don't want to pay that, they're going to have to buy second-hand product. But if there's not a lot of new product and people having to buy second-hand product goes up.
Yeah.
Supply and demand.
So what we're saying, there's going to be less on the market and things are probably going to go up. That's what we're saying.
Looking that way, from looking at approvals that are going through, looking at construction approvals as well. And we are generalizing when we say this, because remember, as developers, we're not looking nationally, we're not looking at state, we're not even looking at city. We're looking at suburban and even sub-suburban when we're doing a development. But for the sake of a conversation, we have to generalise and talk about the country pretty much as a whole. But always drill down, as we know, as developers, we drill down locally. So, yeah, interesting.
It is an
times.
interesting.
I'm looking forward to 2024. I think it's a great time to get into development. We've sort of ridden out a few of the ups and downs, and now things are sort of starting.
It's been a wild ride.
We've got more settling out to do, but it's all good. As far as I'm concerned, it's good settling out.
Yeah.
And, we got projects, we're finding them. Students are finding projects if they're taught properly and know how and where to look and how to do their numbers and how to deal with finance and all that stuff we teach.
So while we're on that, let's go to, or finishing off that conversation. Yeah. Yes, this is for the person who keeps commenting advertorial. This is our podcast. We're allowed to say what we like. We do this in our time and we pay for it. So we're allowed to have shameless plugs of our own business. Is that okay to say?
I think so.
Yeah. So, this is our time. This is a business, just like all the other stuff. But we do it to educate and entertain you. And if you like what we say and you get to know, like, and love us, well, then you'll come and join us. We have fantastic education programs and we have an amazing mentoring program, of which we only work with a very limited number of amazing people. So if that's something you're into, reach out. And remember, the goal setting session, 4th of January. That is actually for free
I'll
for
be there.
anybody. Yeah, that one is just for anybody, and that's just me being a nice person. And we didn't give away the book this week because I forgot to. Well, no one actually reached out for it because I don't know why.
The holidays.
Holidays, I suppose, but we're back on deck. So we were officially back on deck this week. Anyone wants a copy of this, reach out, give us a great plug, share this with somebody, let us know you shared it, put on social media that you watched it, do anything, let me know, and you'll be a winner of this book. And also, again, the shameless plug of my own book, Three Wines In, How to Increase Your Self-Confidence. If you're not achieving what you want in life and you need to kick up the butt, this is the book for you. So if you want this one, it's on hilarysexton.com. There you go. There's all my shameless plugs.
Well, it's your podcast.
It is my
Knock
podcast.
yourself out.
Exactly. So, Bob, I think that was a really interesting topic. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed learning about it. It's not stuff that you probably don't know, but you bring it to realization, and there's a lot of aha moments in that. So what we're saying is it's a blooming good time to be property developing.
I think so. I'm into it.
Yeah, we are. So I think that's the end of podcast 133. We hope you get a little bit out of that. Remember, if you'd like to have a chat with me about what we have to offer, there's always a link below. Book into my diary. Happy to chat with anybody. Happy to chat with everybody, really. That's a bit of a me thing. See you next Wednesday.
You love a good chat.
I love a good chat. Bye.
Bye.